we discussed three combination laws or three crushing grinding laws, which was most popular and which has been most popular for almost last 200 years. So not 200, 150 years. So we started with the Kick's law and then Bond's law, and then we started with the Rittinger's law, then Kick's law, and then Bond's law. And we have seen that what are the description of the laws and how these laws are can be used to get some estimate of the energy required for crushing or grinding. So both all the three laws have the same aim. They aim to predict the energy required for breaking or making the particles smaller from a bigger one, and based on some assumption and based on some ideas, like whatever the specific scientist has. And we have also seen the mathematical expression of the different laws. So we started with this basic description of the laws. So all the laws can be clubbed together in a single differential equation, which would look something like this. And then we started with the Rittinger's law. In Rittinger's law, we see that he said that the work done in crushing is proportional to the new surface exposed by the operation, and this was the expression of the energy required. And then we try to prove it, and then we also discuss something on the Rittinger's number. Then we went and discussed on the Kick's law and see the description of the law and the relevant mathematical function. And then the Bond's law, which is the most recent one, that is also in 1952. So this was the expression of the Bond's law, and we have also seen that there is something called work index, which is kind of a derived way of a different way of expressing the Bond's constant, and it has a specific definition. And after getting the expression of work index as a function of Bond's constant, we get the final expression, which is written in equation 5. So I think we had stopped somewhere here in the last class, and yeah. And if you see this expression carefully, there is another way of expressing the Bond's law in a different way using the same equation, which looks something like this. Here, what we are doing, just taking the dp out of the bracket, and then this entire term would be df by dp, where df by dp is something known as reduction ratio. So why this term has this name, reduction ratio? Any idea? So reduction ratio I am defining is as df by dp, and df is the average feed size and dp is the average product size. Why it is called reduction ratio? Any idea? Yeah, looking at the definition itself, you can understand why it is called reduction ratio. Any idea? Any comment? Right, so this is called reduction ratio because obviously you can see that how much you are reducing the particle size. You started with the particle size df, which is the average size of your feed, and land up to a particle size of dp, which is the average product size. So, and ratio of these two is known as reduction ratio. Okay, and now this is what we got from the Bond's expression or the Bond's law. This is the Bond's law expression, and if we write it in a different way, we can get this expression, which is written in equation 6. Now this Bond's law, when people perform experiments, they have seen that the work which is required for breaking the particle for a specific range of particles somewhat deviate from this equation. It doesn't follow this equation if we take a specific range of particles, but it fits better with this type of equation. See, these two equations are same. If you put the r equal to half, both the equation will be same. Now this general way of expressing the equation is also proposed by a scientist, Holmes, in 1957, where this R is known as the deviation from Kick's law. And this R, if you put this R is equal to half, you will get Kick's law, obviously. And it is obvious, it is observed from the experiment that this R varies from 0.25 to 0.73 for several materials. So this is another way of estimating the energy required for breaking the particle, which deviates a bit from the conventional Kick's law. Kick's law or Bond's law, whatever you say. And now let us go back to the general form. The general form, I said that the general form or the general expression which can be clubbed to define the or to estimate the energy required for crushing can be clubbed into this equation. Now look at carefully. If you put n is equal to 1, you will land up with the expression of Kick's law. If you put n is equal to 2, you will land up with the expression of Rittinger's law. And if you put n is equal to 1.5, you will land up with an expression of Bond's law. So all the three laws can give clubs into a general equation, which is written here. Right. So all the three laws combined together, giving rise to this equation. There is no scientific insight in it. It's just like a uniform way of expressing all the three laws. Now this is the most critical part. So I have discussed three laws so far: Rittinger's law, Bond's law, Kick's law. Now I am giving you a mixture of particle. I am asking you to the feed size of this particle, the average feed size is suppose 10 millimeter, right? And I wanted to bring it down to 500 micron. And I wanted to get an estimate of how much energy I will be needing for breaking this particle or bringing the particle to 500 micron. Now I have these three laws. So which law I should use? Can you give me any idea like which law I should use? Should I go for Rittinger's law? Should I go for Kick's law? Should I go for Bond's law? If I limit yourself in only in three laws. Yeah, can you give me any idea? Or just a thought like how to proceed? Sure.
Sir, could you repeat the question once?
Yeah, so the question is like I'm giving you a mixture of particle which suppose which has a average size of 10 millimeter. Now I wanted to break the particle and bring it to 500 microns. So I have to reduce it. I obviously has to go through a crushing grinding process. Now I wanted to estimate the energy required for doing the same. So all these three laws are basically used for the same thing. It estimates the energy which is required to break the particle and bring it to a small size. Now giving you this requirement, which law you should use to estimate like how much energy you will be required. The only information is you have is the average feed size and the average product size, which is 10 millimeter and 100 microns, 500 microns. Let it be. Now which one you should use? Any random thoughts, idea? Is the question clear to you?
Sir, Rittinger's law
And so why?
means the work we have to break it to 500 microns. So If the denominator is used, the amount of work done after integrating would be less because we want less amount of energy to break it.
And yeah, that is true, but that may not give you the actual result. Like,
Yeah, it is not accurate even, I know. Just a guess, that's it.
Just a guess, but there has to be some basis, like when we should use Rittinger's law, when Kick's law, and when Bond's law. There has to be some reason. Let's look into that. Now we'll look into this chart. This is energy consumption and this is versus size. And you see that which law is mostly applicable in which range of particle size. Now let's go back to my question. The feed size was around 10 millimeter and the product size was around 500 micron. Now which law you should use?
Bond law.
Yeah, somewhere here, right? So Bond's law and Rittinger's law will give you similar kind of, should give you more or less similar type of energy consumption. But you should never use Kick's law. And by looking into this graph, can we just like conclude something like when to use Rittinger's law and when to use Kick's law, at least these two extremes? No, when you wanted to break a particle which which itself has a very small size and you wanted to make it even smaller, then which type of law you should use to estimate the power requirement?
Rittinger's law.
Rittinger's law, right? And when you have a very big particle size, the
Kick's
initial
law.
Kick's law you should use. And when you are somewhat in between, you should use Bond. Yeah, this is the actual line you are seeing here, the actual black line. So these are something which you got from the experiments, and these dotted lines are the representation of the laws, right? So it is somewhat deviating, but it falls into the range, right? So with this understanding, let us try to solve one problem. Yeah, let's try to understand the problem first. So sugar is ground from a crystal of which it is acceptable that 80% of the sugar should pass a 500 micron sheaf. Standard sheaf size is given, and it has to break to a size in which it is acceptable that 80% passes a 88 micron sheaf. So you started with the feed size which where the 80% of your material should pass through 500 micron sheaf, and you reach to a point where your product is such that the 80% of the product should pass a 88 micron sheaf. Obviously you are reducing the size and you are using a motor for breaking this particle, right? The what instrument you are using, which is not specified here, you are using some you are supplying some energy using some motor which is working at 5 horsepower, and 5 horsepower is what it is 90% of its full power. Any question? Yeah, so the motor is working at its 90% of its full efficiency, which is 5 horsepower, and which is required for doing this operation. Now the requirement has changed, the requirement has now changed such that your feed size is now is 125 micron. See, that is what is written. If the requirement are changed such that the grinding is only down to 80% through a 125 micron sheave only, so that means your feed size remains same. Your feed size remains same. Your feed is something which where 80% has to pass through a 500 micron sheave, but now instead of 80 micron sheave material as a product, you have a product where 80% of the product should pass through 125 micron sheet, but your throughput has increased by 50%. That means the initial, suppose you are initially requiring 1 tons per hour, now you require 1.5 tons per hour. So that is something which has been increased. So the capacity has been increased, not the capacity, your requirement has been increased by 1.5%, by 50%, that is 1.5 times. But your product size is now, you have to break it to 125 microns only, starting from 500 microns. And initially it has to be from 500 to 88 microns. Now the question is, the existing motor, would the existing motor have sufficient power to operate the grinder? It is also mentioned that assume Bond's law to be valid. Now how should we proceed? So let us go back and see the expression of Bond's law. So this is the expression of Bond's law in terms of Bond's constant, and this is the expression in terms of work index. So this law is valid, which is written in the which is specified in the problem, and you have to estimate. So you are having a grinding or crushing operation where you are using a motor to break the particle, and now there is some requirement change. The question is, will the existing motor solve the purpose? Now how should you proceed?
Sir, we will first find the work index from 500 micrometer and 88 micrometer sieve, and we will use this work index for 125 micrometer and 500 micrometer sieve.
So can we use the which expression we should use here? This one or this one? The one with the bond constant or the one with the work index?
Sir, work index, because sir, we know that it is 1.5 times. So if we in the second equation, sir, we can use work index at 1.5 times of what we have received in the first equation, sir. Because sir, it is per ton, no, sir. If we increase, sir, means sir, we can decide the value of sir, what work index we will have if we increase our feed rate.
Since the units are in micrometer, so I think we should take kb as 10 Wi. So the
that is fine. I mean, even not this equation, this equation. I mean, whether we should use in terms of work index or in terms of kb only. Will that matter at all? That's my question. Whether we use work index or the bonds constant, will that matter at all in this problem specifically? Because you people might get confused with this type of problem. That's why I'm asking you. Will it matter at all? See, try to understand this problem. Every situation, every operation and everything remains same. So there is no change in anything except you are changing the product size and the feed flow rate. Not the feed flow rate and the product flow rate. Whatever, it's a steady state operation, so feed flow rate. You are increasing the feed flow rate by 1.5 times and you are reducing the final product size from 88 to 125 micron. So basically it's a case of two operations where the operations remains absolutely same, but the requirement changes. Right. Okay, let's see who is right and who is wrong. I mean, whether we can use KB or whether we can use work index. So at the end of the problem, you would be in a position like which one you should take, or either will solve the purpose. So let's again formulate the problem. So initially the DP is 88 micron The DF is 500 microns. Energy supplied to break this particle from 500 to 88 microns is 5 horsepower. So reduction ratio we can find out. Reduction ratio is what? The product divided by feed. Or did I make a mistake here? Reduction ratio is DF by DP, right? Or it could be DP by DF. There's something wrong. Which one makes more sense? You tell me which one makes more sense. Is it wrong or right? Reduction ratio, when I'm writing the term reduction ratio.
So it would be dp by df, I guess.
It's a ratio, so depends on how you are defining. Basically, this one is right. This should be df by dp. Here I had made some typographic error, so it will be df by dp. So I have written that df by dp. It's 500 by 88. So it should be df by dp, not dp by df. Let me correct this one.
Sir, but df is 500, right?
Yeah, here I have written right. Here
Okay.
is the typographic error. It should be df. This should be df. This should be dp. Fine. That is how we define reduction ratio. So once we find out the reduction ratio, we can directly use the formula. So I had used here the concept of work index, but what if we don't use doesn't use work index? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You will understand why. So let us use this equation. I am using this equation 6 here. So W is the work required per unit mass of the material. So that is E divided by M1, which is written this is just I am rewriting the equation 6. So if I rewrite the equation 6 and put the relevant formulas, and we can find out the expression would look something like this. But instead of E, I am putting it as 5 horsepower. See, I am not making any unit change or anything. Let it be whatever it is. This is in horsepower. This we don't know in which unit it is. Let the other units be whatever it is. So I'm using the direct formula. Now in the second case, when the requirement changes, now your M, obviously the mass flow rate that you had initially, that would be replaced by 1.5 M1, because now it's like 50% increase. So M2 would be 1.5 M1, right, for the second case. So if I again write the equation for the second case, what should the equation look like? So I wanted to write the equation for the second case when your product size is 125 micron and your feed size is 500. How that will change this equation? Yeah, just tell me this. What would be this equation for the second case?
88 will become 125 and M1 will become
1.5
M1. Yes, sir.
and E1?
Yes, sir. We need to find that, sir.
Yes, obviously we need to find E1. That is what we need to find out. Now if we write that, let it be E2. We don't know E2. So we can write down this equation. Now if I divide 4 by 5, everything will cancel out. See? Everything will cancel out and we will get the E2. And if you do that, you will get E2 as 5.43 horsepower. Because E1 is in horsepower, obviously E2 you will get it in horsepower. So what we got is now the energy requirement is 5.43 horsepower. Now what we can conclude? The question is,
in the question it is written that the motor is working at 90% of its full power.
Yeah.
So would it be 5 into 0.9 in the place of EI?
No, the motor is working at 5 horsepower. See, in bracket it is written that this 5 horsepower is working at 90% of its full power. So 90% of its full power is 5 horsepower.
Oh, got it, sir. Yes.
Got it. Because it is specifying that the motor is working at 5 horsepower, which is 90% of its full power. Now the ultimate question is, would the existing motor have sufficient power to operate? Now what we have found out is like now the energy requirement is 5.43 horsepower. Initially it was 5 horsepower.
The maximum power motor can generate is 5.55 horsepower, so it can operate.
Yes, so it can operate, right? Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
The maximum horsepower is 5.55, which the motor can operate. And now for the next requirement, the motor is now working at 98% of its full power. Initially, it was working 90% of its full power. Clear? Okay, so let's try to solve another problem. This problem is a bit tricky, so you need to give me some clue of how to proceed. So again, we are using a grinder. Grinder stands for any crusher, grinder, or combination of all these things, which is not specified. All the specification we will see later on, like how the grinder works and how the crusher works and all these things. But let's take some machine which is used to break the particle. And the question is, a grinder is to be used which is only 8% efficient. So the efficiency of all these machines, we will see later on, it's very less. Usually it's very less. To handle 10 tons, 1 ton is equal to 1000 kg per hour of an ore. So this grinder is used to handle 10 tons of ores. What is the feed size? What is the product size? That is average size is not given. Instead of average size, we have a distribution now. The feed and product size analysis are given here. So this is the feed size, or the mass fraction of the respective particle size range is given in this table. This is the feed and this is the product. Right. These are the individual mass fractions. That means the mass retained on this screen, the specific range divided by the total mass. So this is the distribution of your feed and as well as your product is given. So they have performed a sieving analysis and they have given the feed size distribution and the product size distribution. Efficiency of the grinder, don't get confused with the efficiency of screen. It's not the efficiency of the screen, it's the efficiency of grinding, making the feed to a product. That efficiency is 8% only. And here the load is 10 tons per hour. Specific gravity of the ore is also given. Some more information is given. The grinder costs 40,000 rupees and it operates on a 24-hour basis for 300 days per year. And the miscellaneous cost amount is 50% of the power cost. Electricity cost is also given, 70 paisa per kilowatt hour. And the depreciation cost is also given. The machine depreciates on a straight line basis for 10 years. So what we have to estimate, we have to estimate the annual processing cost of the ore if the work index of the ore is given. So work index of the ore is given here, and we have to estimate the annual processing cost. Annual processing cost combines all the cost which is written here. Right. So first thing that added to the cost is the cost of energy, right? The cost of energy is something which is given here, 70 paisa per kilowatt hour. That is the electricity cost, and which is being used to produce energy which is breaking this particle, right? Now we have to estimate the total cost which is involved in the entire operation. That is to get a product from this feed size. This is the operation which involves other operations or other miscellaneous cost also, which is written here. Now what should be the first step of to proceed with the solution of this problem? Again, see the last part of the question. All these are additional information. The grinder cost is 40,000 rupees. So this is the initial cost of the grinder. It operates on a 24-hour basis and 300 days per year. Miscellaneous cost amount is 50% of his power cost. So power cost is something which we don't know here. The electricity cost is 70 paisa per kilowatt hour. And this last one is the depreciation information. So initial cost is for 40,000 rupees. So it will depreciate on a straight line for 10 years. So obviously in 1 year it will depreciate by 4,000 rupees. What we have to find out the annual processing cost of the ore. Work index is given here. How should we proceed?
Sir, can we find for each fraction what is the power requirement in the previous slide, sir? Sir, so we can find for sir each screen size what is the feed and what is the product size. So for each
So, but this is not one-to-one, right? Like if the feed size is this is the mass fraction which is given. So one-to-one corresponding is not here. This is the sieving analysis of feed. This is the sieving analysis of product. So you have the entire mixture analysis. So this is not like directly you can correlate. Suppose this, let me draw it, draw a schematic to make it clear. Suppose this is your grinding operation. So you have a feed which is coming here. Let's take it the feed, and you have a product coming out here. You take this product, do a sieving analysis. You will get this data. You take the feed, do a sieving analysis. You will get this data, the entire data. And this is your grinder. Obviously, now you can understand this one-to-one correspond you cannot make because it's a mixture. So whatever analysis you have to do has to do on the entire feed and entire product. So how to do that? Okay, so all of you first agree that we have to estimate the energy which is required for bringing the particle from feed to product stage, from here to here. This energy requirement we have to find out. Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And now which law we should use here first? There is a clue given in the problem. Look at this slide, the clue is given here. Which law we should use?
So bonds losses.
Yeah, so see the work index is given. Yeah, work index is given. Obviously we should go for Bond's law. right? Now, let's go back and see the expression of Bond's law with work index. Let's take this one. Now, what you need here to estimate this W?
DP and DF.
DP and DF. DP and DF is what?
Average particle size and average feed size. Average product.
Yeah, average product size and average feed size. But there is another information which is involved here. Look at the definition of work index. See this definition. It is defined as the gross energy requirement in kilowatt hours per ton of feed needed to reduce a very large feed. When you have a very large feed, obviously this will go out. This is what I discussed in the last class. This will go out. But for a substantial size of feed, this DF will remain to such a size that 80% of the product passes through 100 micron skin. So this is a constraint for W. So DP, your DP is already defined. When you are using a work index, and if you know the work index, your DP is already defined. So DP would be what? So when I'm using DP with the work index, our DP is what? See the definition of work index again. It is written. What would be your DP?
Mass side throw with 80%.
Yes. DP would be a mixture of particles such that this mixture follows this information. That means if I take this mixture and pass it through a 100 micron screen, 80% of the mixture should pass through the 100 micron screen. That is your definition of product. Fine. Now, instead of making it 100 microns, so if I make it 80% of the product always passes through 100 micron screen, I make this link between KB and WI. Now, once I put this WI back here, back in this equation, now my DP and DF is general. Right. So try to understand the philosophy of this one. So your DP and DF has to be such a size so that 80% of the particles should passes through a screen size of DP and a screen size of DF. When you put KB is equal to 10 WI or KB is equal to 0.3162 WI. Just to make you more clear. So when you have work index defined, if this is your feed size, this is your feed size, and you are defining this as your feed, then the definition says that if you take this feed and pass it through a screen, let's take this to be a screen, then let's take it to be DF, the opening of aperture of the screen is DF, then 80% of the mixture should pass through. 80% of the mixture should pass through a screen of size DF. Similar as the case of product. For case of product, 80% of your product size should pass through a screen size of DP. The constraint that we had put a very large feed size and a 100 micron screen is to correlate the bond constant as the work index, nothing else. So once we have the correlation, then we put it back here, Kb as a function of Wi. But the constraint of 80% of the feed or the product has to pass through, that still remains, because that is not we are correlating in this Kb directly. So when I'm writing the Bond's law in terms of work index, it implies that 80% of your feed passes through a size of screen df and 80% of the product passes through a screen size of dp. Did I make it clear? I tried to make it clear. So if it's not clear, just tell me. And if you have a confusion, just tell me where the confusion is. I'll try to make it clear. Yeah, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
It is clear now. Now our objective is what? Our objective is to find out the df out of the information and dp out of the entire information, right? So if we know df and dp, obviously we are in a position to estimate the power requirement, right? Because the m dot is also given here, the load is also given, everything is given here. See, in this problem, if I go back and see the law expression of the law again, so this m dot is given, we need to find out energy required, wi is also given, dp and df is something which is not given. Instead of that, a distribution of dp and df is given. So we need to find out dp and df out of this. Now how to do that? Recall that different type of analysis we done, cumulative, differential. Can we use any of these?
Yes, sir. We will do cumulative analysis, sir, and where, sir, it will be greater than, sir, 0.8.
Right. Good. What's your name?
Harshit.
Yeah, what Harshit is saying is that making sense to others? So what he's saying is like we have to make a cumulative analysis and we have to find out the size based on this 80% mass fraction. Yes, Harshit, that is what you are saying, right?
Yes, sir.
So is that make some sense? See, it's a reverse problem. In most of the problem, what we know the particle size which has to separate, and then we try to estimate the fraction which is below a specific screen size. But here it's a different. Here how much fraction will pass through, that we know, that is 80%, which is defined or which is there in the definition of work index itself. But here we don't know that what is the exact size, what size we should select so that the 80% will pass through that specific mesh or the specific screen. That size we don't know, both for feed, both for product. This we don't know. This is exactly reverse of the problem that we had solved for the screening. When we discuss on the sheaving and screening operation, there we try to estimate the mass fraction or the fraction of particle which passes through a specific screen. Here we know that how much mass fraction has to pass through, which is 80%, but we don't know exactly at what size. This is again like what information is given in the problem. The work index is given and the m dot is given. So this is the Bond's law that we are using. So why I am using this one?
mm, sir.
Yeah, screen size is millimeter. So everything has a reason. So just follow it. So whatever we had discussed, that is what is written here. dp and df in millimeter, at the aperture size through which 80% of the material, both feed and product, has to pass through as per the definition of work index. So 80% of the feed particle of size less than df and 80% of the product particle size has to be less than of dp. This df and dp we have to find out. Cumulative analysis of the particle size distribution will give us more relevant information, like to find out dp and df. That is what we had done here. Again, carefully see the cumulative analysis how I have written. So by the definition of cumulative function phi, what we understand, like if I tell you the cumulative mass fraction is phi for a particle size of dpi, what do you understand by that?
Smaller than that size.
Yeah, it has to be the phi is a mass fraction of the particle which has a particle smaller than dpi, right?
Yes, sir.
Now see here what I have written, this column, see carefully and see what the information was given in the table. So all minus term I have to write, right? So if I write 0.208, that means that signifies, if I write this one 0.208, that signifies all the particles which are smaller than 208, right? So that's why I have taken all the minus signs here and added up from the bottom. Make sense? Now we have this graph ready with us. Now what to do? Now you should answer,
Sir,
like what? Yeah.
Sir, in the cumulative mass fraction at 0.8, we will draw a horizontal line.
Yeah.
And where it intersects, we will draw the vertical line and calculate that value of aperture size.
Yeah. It's exactly opposite. Remember in the last problem when we discussed on the cumulative graph, we draw a vertical line and then took the mass fraction value. Here it's the opposite. So let's take the product first. So if we draw that, we will get dp equal to 0.7, and if we do it same for the feed, the 80% I am taking because of the definition of work index. So dp we got as 0.7 and df we got as 2.12. Rest is simple algebra. Like just note down these two values, dp equal to 0.7 and df equal to 2.12. Tell me the energy required. Put it back in this equation. Anyone, just tell me the energy required and the relevant unit also. dp we got as
what the dp and df?
dp 0.7 and df is 2.12, I think. Yeah, 2.12. Yes, anyone got the energy estimation, like how much energy is required and what is the unit of that? Anyone? Just put this dp equal to 0.7, df equal to 2.12, and wi is already given. and
Sir, 21.85 kilowatt hour.
let me check. Yeah. So what is the total power consumption? See, the entire process is only 8% efficient, and the one that we had find out is the theoretical estimation, and this one is only 8% efficient. We have to divide it by 0.08. So this will give you the total power consumption. This is what we found out from the law, and because the machine is only 8% efficient, so this is the total power consumption. Now rest is simple algebra. Less what are the other information given? It operates on a 24-hour basis. So you have to multiply it by 24 because we wanted to find out the annual cost. So we have to multiply it by 24 and then by multiply it by 300 days. So this will give you the total power consumption per year, right? So if you have the total power consumption per year, you have to multiply it by 70 paisa per kilowatt hour. This is the per kilowatt hour cost. Then this will give you the total cost for the power consumption. Let's see how much you are getting. So if you do that, the total power consumption, see the total power consumption, how much it is. The annual power cost, 13.744 lakh rupees, total power cost. And what are the other costs? The miscellaneous cost was 50% of the total power cost, and the machine depreciate on a straight line basis for 10 years. So the depreciation idea I think you have, like the initial cost and the final cost divided by the number of years on a straight line basis. If the age of the machine is 10 years, that means the scrap value would be 0 after 10 years. So this is the annual depreciation cost. The miscellaneous cost, you will get the 50% of the annual power cost. This will come as 6.872 lakhs. And if we add up all these things, this is the cost which is involved in breaking the particle. See how costly it is. Now, can you tell me what makes it so costly?
Sir, the efficiency is too low.
Yes, right. The efficiency is too low. That's the main problem. So see, if we go by the actual power consumption, if you increase the efficiency, you will see the significant reduction is in cost, because everything depends on how much power you require. Although the power cost is pretty cheap, it's 70 paisa only per kilowatt hour. Still, we landed up to almost 21 lakh rupees per year, only in breaking the particle from this feed to product size. Yeah, is this problem clear to everyone? I hope now it's clear. So in the next class, I'll start with discussing some of the probabilities which is involved in this crushing and grinding laws, grinding operation, which has not been encountered in the laws that we have discussed so far. So here we haven't encountered any probability whether the particle will break or not, and if the particle will break, what is the probability? What are the other major operations, sub operations involved in breaking the particle, and what are the individual probabilities of occurring each event? So all these things we will discuss in the next class.
Sir, please upload the slides.
Yeah, I'll upload the slide. Just if you don't find it by tomorrow, just put a note in the channel, okay, that please upload the slide. I'll try to do it today.